life is whack. So I'm not usually the type of person to believe in misfortune and stuff like that. I find it kind of, whack. But there was this one specific day in my life. It was a Friday. I remember that. That was, I think, the closest thing to misfortune or bad luck, as they say, as it gets. I mean, I got lost in the mountains that day. Somebody accused me of wanting to kill somebody else. And, actually, no, that was pretty much it. But, anyways, it's still pretty bad. But it makes for a good story. It was a pretty funny and interesting story. So, I'm going to tell you about it today. So, the day before, I bought this book, conveniently and also kind of ironically, called The Hard Luck. It was a book about this kid who went through a pretty rough time. Had something to do with an 8 ball. I don't remember much about the book, but I just remember that it had bad luck involved. And the day after that, which was Friday, I brought the book to school with me, and I remember that about midday, about lunchtime, um, after lunchtime, I came back into the classroom, take English class. Usually, I liked taking that class, even though the teacher was kind of a, she was some words that I'm not gonna use right now, but she was some of those. Anyway, the point is, um, I remember that everybody was like all together in a group, as they do when something bad happens, and you could just hear the little gasping sounds of, oh my god, and I was like, what the hell's happening? And then I found out that, you know, this kid, who I'm not gonna say, um, what name should I use? Let's call him Johnny. So Johnny had his man, what do you call that thing? The thing where you put the things inside of the thing, those things, the pencil, a pencil case. I don't know why I couldn't think of the words. Anyway, so his pencil case, somebody took it and they wrote "I'm gonna kill you," and they put some weird face on it with like X in the eyes. Anyway, it was really poor writing. Whoever wrote it was kind of an idiot. Anyways, and everybody was, they took it pretty seriously, even though it was a pretty normal threat. Not that I don't mean it was normal. I mean it was just a threat that I'm pretty sure the person who wrote it wasn't gonna actually live up to it and kill somebody. So I don't think people needed to worry about it. But I guess it was just the fact that somebody threatened somebody, and that enough was threatening. So after a while, they were examining, the handwriting, and they determined there was between like 3 or 4 people, and those 3 or 4 people, of course, was me, myself, and I. And I I could tell that the handwriting was similar, but as a kid in sixth grade, I was pretty freaked out, and of course, I would tell everybody that it was pretty whack for them to think that I would do something like that, which it was because I was a pretty nice kid, and I wouldn't threaten to kill anybody, even if I wasn't gonna actually kill somebody. I wouldn't pretend to be threatening somebody, even as a prank, because I was a pretty shy kid back in school. I mean, in grade school. So, anyways, I feel like I'm getting sidetracked. So they had us like write the letters of you know the things that it said on the board, and I got pretty freaked out because I wanted to be fair for some reason. I don't know why, and actually write it in my own handwriting instead of doing what other kids were doing and trying to write it as perfect as they could so it didn't resemble the handwriting on the case. I should have done that. I don't know what was wrong with me. So, anyways, I was too much of a good kid to try to lie on the board, and I wrote it the way I would, and it was just getting worse and worse because my handwriting was so similar to that of the person's that people were just starting to think it was me. I was like, no, it's not me. I went up to the board, wrote the letter E, and then everybody was like, oh, that letter E is exactly like the one on the case. And basically, it was a riot. It was crazy. And I was trying to make sure that, I would write the letters, in my handwriting and make sure that that would be as different from his as possible. But I was too much of a good kid, and I couldn't. So I remember that after that, they took us to the office, me and two other kids. And in between those, two other kids, the kid who actually did it was there, but I'm not going to mention his name. I probably should because I was kind of a jerk, but it doesn't matter. So, me, some other kid that wasn't my friend at the time, but later became my friend, who was also kind of a douche, and we ended up fighting one day. But sidetracked. These people, these characters, I should probably talk about them later at some point. So they had us in the office. I was pretty freaked out. You know, a shy kid who didn't want to go to prison because they threatened that they were going to call the cops, which they never did. But I was a stupid 11-year-old, so I believed that they would call the cops. Anyways, so of course I denied it because I didn't do it, but the other kid also denied it, and then they let one of the other kids leave. The other kid that actually didn't do it, me and him, and it was just like the two of us. At that point, they were thinking it was either me or that kid. But of course, the the social worker, I think it is, yeah, the social worker lady, person, woman, not guy, realized that I was just a shy little 11-year-old kid. So of course, she knew that I had nothing to do with it, even though she didn't really know me. But I think that was enough to understand. So she let me out, and she was just alone with the kid. And I don't know if he confessed, but this was all over by Monday. But that day, that Friday, of course, was probably one of the worst school days of my life because not because of what happened, but because what happened wasn't really anything big. I never really got any severe consequences, but it was just the fact that I thought that I was going to get arrested that really stayed with me in my head, in my little 11-year-old head throughout the rest of the day. But it's not over. The day is not over. So after that, we had to go to some place to do something, as you do. And my parents had to take my sister to go to some place and do something, as you do. And I brought the book with me. I don't know if it was the book giving me some sort of misfortune that day, but I was reading it. For some reason, out of the day that I was having I felt more interested in reading the book. So I kept reading it. I hadn't finished the book, by the way. I was almost done with the book, but I wasn't done with it yet. So we took our sister to that place, so she could do that thing, and then we went to go do some other thing that we had to do, me and my parents. But of course, as unlucky days usually do, my dad decided to do something. He said that he knew a shortcut to get quicker to that place instead of taking the usual route. And of course, me and my mom told him, not to do it because it's the same thing, and actually, who knows what could happen. But he said that he knew the route, so of course, he was the one driving, so we let him go with it. So he went through the route that he supposedly said that he has gone through before, and we got lost. Very, very movie like. We got lost in the middle of nowhere. Um, it ended up being really dark. There were no lampposts anywhere, and we were just lost in the mountains. All I could see were trees, darkness. My phone died, so I was pretty bored during the entire ride, just looking at pitch black. And we also had no internet and no connection, so we couldn't call anybody. We couldn't look up where the hell we were through the GPS. We were just completely lost, and it stayed that way for about an hour until after we got out of those woods, I guess, and we found civilization at least. And there was this guy in the middle of the street, and we thought, hey, maybe we should ask him how to get back. But of course, I told my dad that we probably shouldn't ask some random dude, especially since when we started closing in on that dude, he had his belly out just completely. Like he was wearing a shirt, but for some reason he just decided to leave his entire stomach hanging out, and this was like, why would you do that? Also, he was kind of standing there with this like drugged look on his face. He might as well have had like a giant, you know, saliva just coming out of his mouth, just dripping everywhere. But anyways, we closed in on the guy, and we parked right next to him, and my dad lowered the window, and he asked him, how to get back to our town, where we were from, our home, because this is the worst day ever. And the guy said, "Oh, all you gotta do is turn through there, and the other thing, blah 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 blah." And of course, I told my dad, it's kind of shady. Should we really be listening to this guy? And he's like, he's a totally trustworthy guy. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I mean, all trustworthy guys leave their bellies hanging out. So we went, we listened to the directions that he gave us, and we saw a sign that was leading us to the exact opposite route where we were supposed to actually be going. And that's, of course, when we realized, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. So we turned around and we asked another person for directions, somebody that looked more, how do I say this, sane and more normal. And of course, they gave us the right directions, and we turned around and we made our way back home after like another hour of driving. But hey, at least after that, I got some McDonald's. So, what moral should I give for this story? I like giving morals. Okay, let me think. Oh, I kind of dropped something. Anyways, so I don't know. Don't read books about bad luck. I guess I don't know. No, that's not. That shouldn't be the moral of the story. Um, let me think. Here's the moral of the story. If somebody accuses you of, killing somebody, maybe what you should do is, and just listen to me. Listen to me. This is good advice. Actually kill the person because nobody would be expecting that, right? Right? It's good advice. You should probably take it.